So, Sean, I've been taking a look at Generation Z or Z, as we might say, and I should credit a lady called Nicola Woolcock of The Times, who's their education editor, for a fascinating piece of research about Gen Z.
So do you know when a Gen Z born from? Do you know?
That's a good bit of detail. I think it's very recently. So they'll be about 19, 20-year-olds, more or less.
So they're just reaching maturity now. Not maturity, but their age of maturity, isn't it? 18.
Yeah. Entering the workplace, that sort of thing. And there's a few issues with these guys. If I give you the summary, then we can get in for a bit of a chat. But a third of them believe mental health days should be a standard workplace benefit.
Okay.
And a lot of them worry about having interaction with humans rather than, they're not worried about artificial intelligence, but interaction with humans. They don't like working with unknown people.
No.
They hate the thought about having to make small talk.
Crikey.
They've got anxiety using the telephone and having to get up early every morning. These were big things. And they're in the main, they're sort of worried about what you and I would regard as standard office interactions.
Yeah.
And there's more funny stuff in the article. I should say the survey was relatively small. It was 1,500 people, aged 16 to 29. So it's quite a broad thing across the UK. And it was done by Trinity College, London. So, but someone once said to me that if you've got 1,000 respondents, it's broadly representative of a group. So let's tick it off as statistically significant.
Well, it's strange, isn't it? Because some of those things that you mentioned, are things that I can imagine that anybody would find they don't like having to do. Don't like having to get up early in the morning. But it doesn't really cause. I've never really known it to cause anxiety in anybody getting up early in the morning. Have you ever been anxious about getting up early in the morning?
After a good night out, probably at about 2 a.m. when I was getting into bed, it would be more, can I wake up? That
I was going to say, it's not so much, it's not anxious. With a skinful on board, like I know when you were in your salad days you used to have, then getting up for work in the morning, sometimes you'd need, well, not you personally, but one would need 2 or 3 alarms really to go off, wouldn't it, to make sure that you didn't in your half stupor.
Or in your case, your tea's maid. Would tea's maid for you, was it?
Tea's maid, yeah. Yeah, it's my tea's maid. Yeah. She used to come in the morning, my tea's maid.
But there is
a goblin, weren't they? Goblin tea's maid. Do you remember those?
Yeah, other brands available, I think we should say.
Yeah.
But so there's a whole
Goblin was
sort
always
of
the best.
But there's a whole sort of thing really going on here. I don't know whether it's, to be blunt, they can't be bothered to get up, or if it's a genuine anxiety about the workplace. And is it any different? Because I can remember being terrified turning up for my first day at work in a blue chalk striped suit. I looked like Al Capone as I walked through the door. I really did. But I was absolutely terrified. And of course, once you've done your first week, there's nothing to worry about.
No. So are you talking, because I can understand an anxiety about a first day. Yeah. As anybody, kids going to school for their first day.
Yeah.
But it sounded to me as though they were anxious about a longer term problem, getting up early in the morning. And you were talking about banter around the, I think the American expression around the water cooler. I mean, we never had any bloody water coolers.
I was going to say, we had a tap, which was warm in summer.
Yeah.
But it didn't do me any harm.
The first time I saw a water cooler was on Moonlighting. To Moonlighting, the American show. I never had a water cooler. Yeah, Bruce Willis and who was the other woman on there? Yeah, but anyway.
Well, the point is though, and if we took this seriously, which we should, it means that Gen Z, or at least the respondents in this survey, 19 to 29, they have real hang-ups about these things. So this idea of mental health day. Well, what's wrong with Saturday and Sunday for your mental health day? Bank holiday.
Well,
4 or 5 days leave.
I guess it depends upon
Here we go.
No. I guess it depends upon what you term these days off, doesn't it? Because you'll recall I mean, I don't know, you were in the Boys Brigade, you had a perfect attendance record. You used to win the awards every month, didn't you?
I did.
And
yeah.
maybe
See,
you didn't have a day off
come
work.
rain or shine.
Yeah. You never had a day off work for 30 years. You were always there.
Very rarely.
You'll remember we had a friend who worked for a newspaper at the time, who used to include his annual sick allowance as part of his holidays.
To be fair to said Fred, he was ahead of his time, wasn't he?
He was ahead of his
He
time.
built in mental health days before anyone had ever talked about them.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the point I'm talking about. That in those days, there wasn't, because we timed up in this country, or ostensibly timed up, in terms of how we behave towards sickness at work. Now people monitor it, and if you're off over a certain period of time, you get called in and you have to explain what. When we were working for the bank, there was none of that. You could have, within reason, a fair old amount of time.
Yeah, it was manager's discretion. So if you notice somebody had Monday-itis after about 3 or 4 occasions, you'd be saying, "Oh, there's a strange pattern to your sickness."
Yeah, so that was left to the discretion of the local manager. They'd have had a word and said, this isn't really on.
I once worked with a guy who had that, seriously. So we had HR in at Monday-itis, me and HR and this chap, and he said, "Yeah, to be honest, I have half a bottle of vodka on a Sunday." So I said, and I meant this, I said, "Would you mind switching that to Friday or Saturday and we'd be fine?"
Yeah, concern for alcoholics in those days wasn't.
I thought that was a good solution. Caring boss.
Yeah, but that's true, isn't it? That to a degree, that's true. That you've given the example of you ran your own ship in those days. So I think what we're looking at here is something that back in the 70s and 80s people would have done anyway, but it wouldn't have been badged under a mental health day. It would have just been flexibility duvet day. It was called a while back, wasn't it? When you wake up in the morning, you don't feel as though you want to go into work.
Yeah, but true. That is true. But more broadly, this sort of thing about not wanting to answer the phone, not having to. There's another one which I really thought was funny: is not wanting to have to feign enthusiasm, presumably in front of the boss.
You've done that many a time. You've done that many a time. And schmooze enthusiasm, as we know.
Oh yeah.
Because
you've got a smooth enthusiasm. I mean, boss comes up with an idea. You don't sort of say, "I've never heard anything so ridiculous." You say, "Oh, it's a super idea. Let me consider it. Let me get back to you." But these are just social skills, and this thing about not wanting phone conversations. Do you think that's, in all seriousness, do you think that's down to the way that, if you like, the latest generation, Gen Z or whatever you want, is that because their messaging is one-liners, voice messages?
Yeah, it's how they communicate, isn't it?
13-second TikTok video. Yeah. Do you think it's this idea of having to have a conversation like we're doing actually horrifies people?
I think it does, and I don't think they've got maybe the art of debate that we had when we were youngsters. I mean, if you and I if we wanted to find a young woman or what have you, or go courting, you had to well, I know that's a Rees-Mogg term, courting, but you know what I mean. If you wanted to go out with a woman, you had to engage with her face to face. You couldn't just swipe left and there she is, and go and meet her. And if you don't, it wasn't a commodity like it is today. Almost, you had to. And similarly with work, applying for a job and what have you, you have to go through a process. You have to go through interviews. Nowadays, everything seems to be analytical, AI, done online. So you don't
I've heard that. The whole process in some firms is done by AI or by a bot.
Yeah, well, look at Brighton and Hove Albion. How do they choose their players?
Sorry.
Yeah. How
do they choose their players?
What's it called? The program?
Star Lizard.
Yeah, Star Lizard. I was going to say Tin Lizard there, but that's the way we're going, isn't it? I think we're going to a point where you don't engage. I mean, as we discussed before, I'm nowhere near as much of a smooth person as you are. I'm perfectly happy during the pandemic to sit at home and not have to sit in the same room or go on the underground with people and do all this Oh, how wonderful, sir. And that's where you get to the emperor's new clothes. This is how we end up with people like Trump in charge, because nobody's prepared to say you're an
Right. Can
idiot.
we bring it back to poor old Gen Z, who
Poor old Gen Z.
are really worried about going to work, meeting people, having to talk to someone like you?
Psychologically, we have to work out why it is they're so concerned, don't we?
Do we? Can't we just tell them to pull themselves together and get on with it?
Well,
Don't we need a little bit of that?
Well, I think that's the answer. The answer to the people who are long term sick with mental health, isn't it? And they need to. That seems to be some politicians are. They need to just pull themselves together and get on with it. But don't we need to have a look at where the root of all this problem lies? Because we didn't have that when we were younger, did we? And do you think it's a contagion, effectively, a malaise across Gen Z that they don't really want to engage with society?
In all honesty, I don't know. I don't know that many Gen Zs.
No.
I think obviously that this article is done its job. The research has got its column inches, and the university can tick off another publication. I think it's overhyped. I think there is a little bit of look. These things might worry you, but I promise you, after your first week, you're wondering what you're worried about. But a bit of understanding, yes. So to Gen Z, I'm saying forget the mental health days, get yourself into work, have a chat with someone. And when you see your boss, just tell him you think he's or her, tell them you think you're wonderful. And the ideas they have every day are just remarkable.